It's strange how a single moment can turn your whole world upside down. I never expected anything like this to happen to me. If you asked me a month ago, I would have told you I had a happy, comfortable life. I was content. My marriage was solid, I thought. My wife and I, we were fine. But sometimes, what we think we know is nothing more than a house of cards waiting to collapse. I never considered myself the jealous type, nor the type to snoop. But what I heard that day shattered any illusion I had of the life we built together. It was a Thursday. It had been a long week, and I was at home earlier than usual, trying to get some peace. I had taken a break from work to walk around the house, stretch my legs, clear my mind. I wandered through the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, and then found myself standing by the hallway that led to the back patio. It's where the old wooden door creaks if you push it too hard, a sound that always makes me laugh a little, remembering when we first moved in. That day, though, I wasn't laughing. I was lost in my thoughts when I heard it. A voice, not mine, echoing faintly through the crack in the door. I froze. It wasn't just one voice. There were two. One of them was my wife, and the other was a voice I recognized too well, but could never have imagined in this context. It was Patrick, my best friend. I didn't want to eavesdrop. I really didn't. But I couldn't stop myself from leaning a little closer, just to hear what they were saying. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was instinct. Either way, I regretted it immediately after. Because what I heard next would haunt me forever. I don't know how much longer I can do this, Patrick. My wife's voice broke the silence. It sounded strange, distant, almost detached. I feel so trapped. Every day is the same. I wake up, go through the motions, and pretend everything is fine. But it's not. I don't know how much longer I can pretend that I'm happy, or that I want this life. My blood ran cold. Trapped? Happy? What the hell was she talking about? I felt my heart start to pound in my chest as I pressed my ear against the door, desperately trying to hold myself together. I couldn't make sense of it. She was talking about me. I knew it. Patrick's voice was softer, almost reassuring. But you've tried, right? You've done everything you can to make it work? I don't know anymore, Petra replied, her voice so tired, so worn out. I feel like I'm living someone else's life. I thought I wanted this, but now I feel suffocated. Like I'm drowning. And I don't know if I can keep going. I don't want to hurt him, but I think I have to let go. A sharp pain hit me like a physical blow. Let go? Of me? I wanted to burst through that door, demand answers, demand the truth. But somehow, I stayed frozen in place. My mind was spinning with every word. Let go. Trapped. Drowning. These weren't words that belonged in my marriage. I didn't even recognize the woman I was hearing on the other side of that door. I felt myself slip down against the wall, sitting there in the silence, trying to process everything. All I could think of was how utterly unprepared I was for this moment. How could I not see it? How could I have been so blind? I can't keep living like this, Petra continued. I need to be free. I need something more than this routine. I need to feel alive again. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, my hand shaking as it rested on the floor. I didn't know what to do with this information. I didn't know what to do with myself. It was like a door had opened in my mind, and everything I thought I knew about my marriage was suddenly under question. Was I really the man she wanted? Was I the reason she felt suffocated? The conversation drifted, but the words didn't leave my head. They kept replaying over and over. Trapped. Drowning. Suffocated. Free. I don't know how long I stayed there, but when I finally stood up and walked away, it felt like I was stepping into a new reality. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't confront anyone. The storm inside me was too loud, too chaotic, and I didn't know where to begin. I needed space, clarity. What I didn't know was this: something had to change. I had to free her. And maybe, in doing that, I would find freedom too. I woke up the next morning with a weight on my chest, like something was suffocating me. The events from the night before were still fresh in my mind, playing on repeat. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could hear was Petra's voice, filled with frustration and sadness. I feel suffocated. I tried to act normal. Petra was already up when I came downstairs. She was making coffee, her back turned to me as she hummed quietly, the sound of her movements almost robotic. I stood there in the doorway, frozen for a moment, just watching her. She seemed so distant. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything between us had changed overnight. "Morning," she said without looking up. Her voice was light, but there was something off about it. Like she was pretending to be fine. I could tell she was trying to act normal, just like me. Morning, I replied, my voice thick with the emotions I was fighting to keep buried. I didn't know what to say. How do you even start a conversation like that? How'd you sleep? Fine, she said quickly, almost too quickly. She handed me a cup of coffee, her eyes not quite meeting mine. The silence between us was palpable. I could feel the tension in the air, like we were two strangers in the same house. I took the coffee, but my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation I'd overheard. It kept gnawing at me, urging me to take action. What was I supposed to do now? What did she want from me? Did she want me to change? Or did she just want out? She looked up at me then, her gaze flickering toward my face for a moment before she looked away again. I've been thinking, she said, her voice soft. About us. I felt my pulse quicken. Was she going to confront me? Was this it? Was she finally going to say it? I tried to keep my composure, but I could feel the heat of panic rising in my chest. What about us? I asked, keeping my voice steady. She took a deep breath, then looked at me more directly, but there was something in her eyes, something guarded, something I didn't recognize. I think we need to talk, Mal. I've been feeling like things aren't right. Like we're stuck in this routine. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't feel like I'm really here anymore. Like I'm not. I'm not happy, and I don't know how to fix that. It felt like the ground beneath me was slipping away. My worst fear, the one that had haunted me all night, was coming true. She was unhappy, and now, it seemed like she was asking for something that I wasn't sure I could give her. I don't know what to say, I replied, my voice tight. I didn't know you felt this way. She looked down at the floor, almost as if she couldn't bear to look at me. I don't want to hurt you, Mal. I really don't. But I've been holding this in for a long time. I just feel like I'm trapped, like I'm suffocating. It's not you, it's just this life. I don't know how to keep going like this. I was shaking, trying to hold it together. I didn't want to cry, didn't want to show her how much this was hurting me. But hearing her say those words, I'm suffocating, was like being punched in the gut. I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was being the good husband. But somehow it wasn't enough. Then maybe it's time for us to change, I said quietly. The words surprised me as soon as they left my mouth. It wasn't what I had intended to say, but somehow it felt right. She looked at me then, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. What do you mean? I continued, my voice gaining strength. Maybe we both need something different. If you're feeling like this, maybe I'm the one holding you back. Maybe I need to step back and give you the space you need. Maybe I need to free you from this. I expected her to protest, to tell me that I was wrong, but instead, she just stared at me, her eyes wide. For the first time in a long time, she seemed almost relieved, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. I don't want to be the person who holds you back, Petra, I said, my heart pounding in my chest. If you need to go, if you need to be free, I'll let you go. There was a long pause as she processed my words. For a moment, I thought I saw tears well up in her eyes, but she blinked them away before they could fall. You're serious, aren't you? She whispered. I nodded, my throat dry. I'm serious. If you need this, if you need to be free, then I'm not going to stop you. You deserve to be happy. And just like that, I said it. I made the decision to let her go. The silence that followed my words was unlike anything I had ever felt. Petra didn't speak for what seemed like an eternity, and neither did I. I could feel my heart racing in my chest, but I refused to backtrack. I had made a decision. A hard decision. But maybe, just maybe, it was the right one. Finally, Petra looked at me again, her eyes softer now, more vulnerable than I had seen in a long time. You're really going to let me go? I nodded. I think it's the best thing for both of us. You need to be free, Petra. And maybe I do too. My voice cracked as I said it. The idea of being without her was terrifying, but if it was what she needed, I couldn't stand in the way. Her lips trembled as she took a slow breath. I don't know what to say. I didn't either. I had never imagined a conversation like this in my wildest dreams. But I couldn't deny what was in front of me anymore. The woman I loved was no longer the same person she had been when we met. And maybe I wasn't either. I've been holding this in for so long, Mal, she said quietly, her voice full of emotion. I didn't want to hurt you, but I just couldn't keep pretending. I know, I said, my heart sinking as I realized how much pain she had been carrying, probably for a long time. I never saw it. I should have. Petra reached out, hesitantly placing her hand on mine. I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen. You didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve this, I repeated under my breath. The words were heavy, final. I had always believed that if you worked hard enough, you could make anything work. But some things just couldn't be fixed. For a moment, we just sat there, holding hands, staring at the floor. Everything was changing. We were changing. And I had to accept that. I'll make this easy for you, I said, finally looking up. I'll leave. I'll get my things. You don't have to worry about a thing. Petra's eyes widened. You're serious? Yeah. I swallowed hard. If you want space, I'll give it to you. I don't want to drag this out. I want you to have the chance to find whatever it is you're searching for. She didn't say anything for a long time. Her fingers tightened around mine, and for a brief moment, I thought she might pull me closer, might beg me to stay. But then she let go, slowly, almost like it pained her to do it. I don't know what I'm doing, she whispered. But I think I need to do this. And just like that, it was decided. We were breaking apart. Neither of us had said it in those exact words, but we both knew. There was no going back now. I stood up, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me like a thick fog. I'll pack tonight. I'll give you time to figure things out. Petra nodded, her eyes still wet with unshed tears. She didn't speak, but I could see the weight of her decision in her expression. This wasn't easy for either of us, but it felt inevitable. And, for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally giving her the one thing she needed, freedom. The next few days felt like a dream, one I desperately wanted to wake up from. But somehow, the reality of it kept me grounded. I had spent most of my time away from the house, giving Petra the space she needed to think. I stayed at a friend's place, barely able to focus on anything, but my mind kept circling back to her, to us, to the life we had built together. I hadn't fully understood it at first. How could I? But now, with some distance, it became clearer. Petra's unhappiness wasn't something I had just missed. It had been building for years. Little cracks that I thought were just normal wear and tear in a relationship. But in reality, they were signs of something deeper, something I had refused to see because I didn't want to. I wasn't prepared to face the truth. I came back to the house one afternoon, the decision weighing on me. Petra was sitting in the living room, staring out the window. She looked so small, so fragile, in that moment. I had never seen her like this, so broken and uncertain. Mal, she said softly as I entered. She didn't look up, but I could hear the strain in her voice. It was the same voice that had been talking about freedom just days before. I've been thinking. I don't know what's next. I don't know what I'm doing. I sat down across from her, the silence between us heavy. It felt like we were strangers in the same house. The woman I once knew so well, her laughter, her fire, her passion, was now a distant memory. All I could see now was the shell of who she used to be, and it was suffocating me. I think you need to do what makes you happy, I said, my voice steady but laced with pain. I had already made up my mind about the decision, but hearing her say those words again, seeing the uncertainty in her eyes, made it feel more real than ever. She finally turned to face me. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but there was something different about her now, a clarity that I hadn't seen before. I don't want to hurt you, Mal, she said, her voice breaking. But I don't think I can keep pretending. I couldn't hold it in anymore. The anger, the confusion, the heartbreak, it all hit me like a wave. I had let her go, hadn't I? I had given her space, tried to let her find herself. But in that moment, I realized something. I had been lying to myself, too. I had been pretending that this wasn't affecting me, pretending that I was okay with it all. But I wasn't. I don't want you to go, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I never did. But if this is what you need, then I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. There was a long pause. Petra looked at me, as if she were searching for something in my eyes, some kind of answer. And then, she spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. I think I already know what I need, Mal. I need freedom. I need to find myself again. And I think I need to do that alone. The words hit me harder than any physical blow. I had been so focused on letting her go, so focused on doing the right thing for her, that I hadn't thought about what that would mean for me. But now I realized that the only way for her to be truly free was to walk away. And that would mean I had to let her go completely, no strings attached. I'll go, I said finally, my throat tight. I'll leave tonight. I just want you to be happy, Petra. I really do. She didn't say anything. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but I knew it was the only thing left to do. I wasn't going to beg her to stay. I wasn't going to fight her anymore. Because, deep down, I knew she was already gone. That night, I packed my things in silence. I took a suitcase, filled it with just the essentials, clothes, toiletries, a few books, and walked out of the house that had once felt like home. The place where we had shared so many memories, so many laughs. It was no longer mine to stay in. It was hers now. I drove away, the city lights blurring past me. I didn't know where I was going, didn't know what the future held. But one thing was clear, I had freed her. And now, I had to free myself. The days that followed felt like they were in slow motion. I found myself drifting through life without direction. Every morning I woke up in a place that wasn't mine, in a bed that didn't feel like home. The apartment I'd moved into was small, sterile, nothing like the life I had shared with Petra. Yet, for the first time in a long while, it was quiet, almost peaceful. But the peace didn't last. I hadn't heard from Petra since I left. Not a text, not a call. The silence felt deafening. It was like I had just vanished from her life, and it was hard to accept. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I thought I was still in love with, had cut me out completely. One afternoon, 2 weeks after the move, I decided I couldn't just wait around anymore. I needed closure. I needed to understand what had really happened, what went wrong. So, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called her. Hello. Her voice sounded distant, unsure, like she wasn't expecting it. Petra, I said, my voice shaky. It's me. I wanted to talk. To see how you're doing. There was a long pause. I've been okay, she finally said. Just figuring things out, you know? I hated how she said that. It was like she was already living a life without me, and I was the last thing on her mind. I've been thinking a lot. About everything. I don't want to just disappear from your life. I want to understand what happened. She hesitated, and I could hear the strain in her voice. I think you've already given me everything I need. You freed me, just like you said you would. I don't know what else there is to say. Her words hit me hard. Freely? What did that even mean? She sounded so sure, but I wasn't. There was so much more I needed from her. So much I didn't understand. Please, Petra, I pushed. I don't know if I'm ready to just let go like this. I don't think I can. It feels wrong. She sighed. Mal, it's not that I don't care. I do. I always will. But it was time for both of us to figure out who we really are without each other. You freed me, but in a way, you freed yourself too. I swallowed hard. I could hear the finality in her voice. It was a goodbye, even though neither of us had said the words. It wasn't about us anymore. It was about her, about the life she wanted for herself. And I, somehow, was a part of that life she had to let go of. All right, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. You'll figure it out, she said softly, and then, without another word, she hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone. I hadn't expected her to say much more, but somehow, I thought maybe she would, something to give me hope, something to make me feel like I wasn't a forgotten chapter in her life. But no, that was it. I knew the truth now. She was gone. Completely. The woman I once loved had moved on, and I was left standing in the ashes of what we had. But here's the thing about love. It's a strange beast. It doesn't go away just because you tell yourself it should. It lingers. It claws at you when you least expect it. And it left me feeling like I was stuck in a story that wasn't mine anymore. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if there was even a next for me. But one thing I knew for sure was that I had to move on, no matter how hard it was. Because in the end, I had freed her. And maybe, just maybe, it was time I freed myself. A month passed, and the silence between Petra and me grew deafening. I settled into my new routine. Work became my escape, long hours, late nights, anything to avoid the empty apartment that reminded me of the life I had lost. But no matter how hard I tried, there was a constant ache in my chest. The days felt long and hollow without her. Then, one evening, as I was heading home from work, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Petra. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. I hadn't heard from her in so long, and now this? My fingers hovered over the phone, unsure of what to do. Was it a mistake? Did I even want to open it? I took a deep breath and opened the message. I need to talk to you. Can you meet me tomorrow at the cafe? It was short, simple, but something about it made my heart race. What did she want now? After everything, after I had given her the space she said she needed, why was she reaching out? My mind raced through possibilities. Was she regretting her decision? Did she miss me? Was she trying to come back? The next day, I found myself sitting at a small table in the cafe where we used to go when things were good. It felt like a lifetime ago. The place hadn't changed much, but I had. I had learned so much about myself in these weeks of solitude, about my own insecurities, my mistakes, and what I had failed to see. And then she walked in. Petra looked different. Not in a dramatic way, but there was something about her. She was still beautiful, but there was a quiet confidence in her that hadn't been there before. She approached the table slowly, her eyes scanning the room before landing on me. "Mal," she said, her voice soft, unsure. "Petra," I replied, standing up to greet her. I wanted to say more, but the words wouldn't come. I wasn't sure how to act around her anymore. We were strangers now, despite everything that had happened. She sat down across from me, folding her hands on the table. "I've been thinking a lot," she started, her gaze never leaving mine. "About everything. About us. About the last few months." I nodded, waiting for her to continue. I had no idea where this conversation was going, but I could feel the tension in the air. This wasn't a casual meeting, it was something more. "I've changed, Mal," she said quietly. "I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not the same person I was when we first got together. I've done a lot of soul searching, and I think I finally understand what I need. What I've always needed." I held my breath, my heart racing. Was she about to tell me she was leaving for good? Was she moving on? I didn't know if I could handle hearing that again. I thought I was ready to walk away, she continued, her eyes softening. But then I realized something. I've been so focused on what I thought was wrong with us that I ignored what was right. You gave me freedom, Mal. But I didn't realize until now that freedom doesn't mean I have to give up on us. I felt the air leave my lungs. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm saying I made a mistake," Petra said, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't want to lose you. Not like this. Not after everything we've been through." I stared at her, trying to process her words. Was this really happening? Had she really changed her mind? Or was this just another moment of doubt? I couldn't tell. "I don't know if we can go back to what we were," she added, her voice laced with uncertainty. "But I do know that I want to try. I don't want to be free of you. I want to be free with you." The room seemed to grow smaller, the noise of the cafe fading away. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to jump into her arms and tell her I was ready to forgive everything, to go back to the way things were. But another part of me was scared. I didn't know if we could ever be the same. The last few weeks had changed me too. "Petra," my words caught in my throat. "I don't know if I can just pick up where we left off. I don't know if I can trust that things will be different." "I understand," she said quickly, her eyes softening. "I don't expect everything to go back to normal. But I think we owe it to ourselves to try." The vulnerability in her voice was something I hadn't heard in a long time. She was admitting that she didn't have all the answers, that she didn't know if this would work, but she was willing to try. And maybe that's all we really needed, a chance. I sat there, staring at her, wondering if I was ready to take that step. But in the end, what other choice did I have? I had already let her go once. I wasn't ready to do it again. "I'll try," I said, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. "I'll try if you're willing to." Her face broke into a small, tentative smile. "I am." And for the first time in weeks, I felt something stir in me, hope. The days after our conversation at the cafe were a blur. There was a strange sense of hope lingering in the air, but also an undeniable tension. It wasn't the kind of hope that came with certainty. It was the kind that made you take a step forward, but only after looking over your shoulder, wondering if you were about to fall. Petra and I started spending more time together again, cautiously at first. Our interactions were slow, measured. Neither of us wanted to rush into something we weren't sure could work. But the truth was, things had changed. The dynamic between us was different, and it felt almost like we were learning how to be around each other all over again. We started with small things, dinners out, walks through the park, casual conversations about work or life. But every now and then, when the silence between us grew too long, I could feel the weight of what had happened hanging in the air. The trust we once had wasn't the same. I wasn't sure if it ever would be. One evening, we sat on the couch in my apartment, watching a movie. I could tell Petra was distracted, lost in thought. She wasn't laughing at the funny parts, wasn't reacting to the scenes the way she usually would. I reached out and gently touched her hand. "Hey," I said softly. "What's on your mind?" She turned to look at me, and I saw something in her eyes. Hesitation, vulnerability. "I've been thinking about what you said, about not knowing if things can go back to normal." I nodded, unsure of where this was going. "Yeah, I'm not sure they can." She squeezed my hand, looking down at it for a moment before meeting my eyes again. "Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe we don't need to go back to what we were. But we can create something new, something better. But only if we're both willing to try." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. Was she right? Could we really build something better from the ashes of what we had? Could we ever truly escape the past, or would it always follow us? "I don't know what that looks like," I admitted, my voice low. "I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep trying." "I don't know either," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "But I want to. I want to try, if you're willing to." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I just held her hand, letting the silence stretch between us. The weight of our past was heavy, but maybe, just maybe, there was room for something new, something different. "I'll try," I said finally. "But it's going to take time. We can't rush this. We can't expect it to be perfect." "I know," she replied. "But we can take it one step at a time." And for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, we had a chance. Months passed, and things between Petra and I slowly shifted. We weren't exactly the same as we once were, but something more honest had begun to grow between us. We were both more aware, more present in the small moments. There was no rush, no expectations for everything to suddenly be perfect. We were learning how to rebuild trust, even if it felt like a delicate house of cards. But as we made progress, something strange happened. Petra began to act distant again. It wasn't obvious at first, but I began noticing the little things, the late nights at work, the unreturned texts, the distracted looks when I spoke to her. It wasn't like before, where she was outright unhappy, but it was enough to make me uneasy. Then, one evening, I was working late again, catching up on some emails at my apartment. Petra had gone to bed early. I was focused on the screen when I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. But when I opened it, there stood Patrick, the same friend who had comforted Petra when she was struggling with our marriage months ago. His face was tight with something unspoken, but before I could ask what was wrong, he just stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "What's going on?" I asked, genuinely confused. He didn't beat around the bush. "Mal, I need to tell you something. It's about Petra." My stomach dropped. "What about her?" "Look, I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but I can't stay silent anymore." Patrick paused, clearly wrestling with the words. "Petra has been seeing someone else. For months now." I felt the blood drain from my face. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I wanted to yell, to demand answers, but the words caught in my throat. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "I've seen them together. It's been going on since right after you moved out. She was using the time to figure things out as an excuse. But she's been with him, behind your back." I couldn't breathe. My mind raced through every moment I thought had been a step forward. All those small conversations, the promises to rebuild, the attempts to fix what had been broken, it was all a lie. She hadn't been lost or confused. She had been keeping something from me. Something much darker. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and betrayal. Patrick hesitated before finally telling me the truth. "It's Jason, from the office." I didn't know how deep it went until recently, but, yeah, she's been with him. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my mind reeling. Petra had been cheating on me. The woman I had fought to save, the woman I had believed was the one, had used my trust to betray me. And worse, she had done it with someone I knew. I couldn't believe it. But in some twisted way, I wasn't shocked. It all made sense now. The distance, the sudden coldness. Her need for freedom had never been about needing space. It had been about finding an escape. And I was the fool who had helped her find it. The next day, I confronted her. She didn't deny it. The look on her face was one of guilt, but there was no apology, no remorse. Only an air of inevitability, like she knew I would eventually find out. "Mal," she began, her voice shaking. "I didn't want it to happen like this. I never meant to hurt you." "Then why did you do it?" I demanded. "Why didn't you just tell me the truth? Why lie?" Her eyes dropped to the floor. "I don't know. I thought I could handle it all. But I couldn't. I gave you everything, Petra, and this is how you repay me? My voice was filled with a cold rage. You didn't need me to free you. You needed someone to blame for your own choices. I'm sorry, she whispered, but the words felt empty. She had already made her decision. I stood there for a moment, staring at her. Then, I did something I never thought I would. I walked out, leaving her standing there. The tears that had threatened to fall for months finally came. But they weren't for her. They were for the man I had become because of her betrayal. I didn't need to get angry. I didn't need to fight or beg. I had freed her. And now, I would free myself. I left the apartment, packed up the rest of my things, and moved on for good. It wasn't just about leaving Petra. It was about leaving the version of myself that had been trapped in the past. It was about taking back control. A few weeks later, I received a call from Jason, Petra's lover. He had called to apologize, telling me he never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't need his apology. I had moved on. Petra had made her choices. And now, karma was her companion. As for me, I found peace in knowing I had taken the high road. I had freed myself from the shackles of a broken relationship, and it felt liberating. It was time for me to rebuild my life, this time with clarity and strength. And for Petra, I didn't need to get even. Life has a way of serving up its own justice.